If there's one thing Italians take seriously, it's pasta. The average Italian eats 51 pounds of this stuff per year, compared to just 15 for the average American. Although there are many shapes and sizes of pasta. I mean, there's rigatoni, there's cavatelli, there's spaghetti, there's God knows what this thing is. Okay? There's only one way to cook it. That's al dente. Toothsome. It has a bite to it. You chow down on it. It's not like the pasta cooked the Italian way to an American may seem raw and crunchy. However, pasta cooked the American way to an Italian is mushy and edible. Ugh. So, mom's Italian, dad's American. Dad, under the bus you go. For my experiment, I wanted to take a look at how drying temperature would affect the texture of the cooked pasta given the same pasta shape and cooking time. So let's start by describing the basis of the experiment. I started by making a single batch of pasta dough by scaling up my mom's recipe, which called for 1 egg per 100 grams of flour. I needed 5 batches of pasta in total, but only a few pieces to cook for each batch. In total, I used 300 grams of flour and 3 eggs. The first batch was air dried at room temperature, and the 4 others were dried in the oven at 4 different temperatures. The lowest 2 temperatures match the range typically used by artisanal small batch producers, such as Baia Pasta in Oakland. The 2 highest temperatures match the range used by big industrial brands such as De Cecco and Barilla. I made a thick cut shape called tagliatelle, which made it easier to see the changes inside after cooking. So let's have a look. First, we have to prepare the dough by mixing flour and eggs. Then, we knead the dough and fold it over like a letter so that it can be flattened into a hand-cranked pasta roller. Each successive pass is done with the rollers closer together until we get the desired thickness. Next, the dough is passed through a cutter to get our final shape. Now that we have the final cut, we rinse and repeat 4 times.
It's 8 o'clock.
Onto the sheets they go. The first one, our control, is simply left out on the counter. The next next 4 are going to be placed in the oven. The first 2 temperatures were 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit, and 80 degrees Celsius, 176 degrees Fahrenheit. The last 2 were 100 degrees Celsius, 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and 120 degrees Celsius, 248 degrees Fahrenheit. All oven-dried batches were dried for 1 hour on the same rack. Gotta keep things as consistent as possible. So, since we only had 1 oven and I'm not allowed to stay up until 3 a.m., I asked my dad to help. Happily, he was willing to help. Good thing I didn't tell him I planned on throwing him under the bus in this video. Night 2. So time to do the cooking, photography, and tasting. We have a lighted magnifying glass, an alligator clip rig that is normally used for soldering electronics and components. Resistors, cooked pasta, same thing. Pro tip, clean your alligator clips after each use. Let's get cooking. For each batch, we're using 2 cups of water and 1 teaspoon of salt. The water is brought to a rolling boil and a few strands are placed in the pot fully submerged. We pulled out a sample at 4 minutes and at 9 minutes. Without draining it, we cut a piece in half and mount it on the alligator clip. When you look closely, you can see the uncooked portion in the center. In Italian, this is called the anima, which means soul. So if you cook your pasta for too long, you could say it's given up its ghost. Do you hear me, Chef Boyardee? Your SpaghettiOs have no soul! I tasted each batch, and what I found is that the higher the drying temperature, the more crumbly was the pasta. For the highest temperature, its consistency was like a cracker. What? Not even Olive Garden would serve crackers Alfredo. Or maybe they would. To try to understand what's going on, I asked my friend Dario Barbone, an Italian co-founder of Baia Pasta, about this. Fun fact, before he started making pasta professionally, he was a molecular biologist. I had to track him down in Paris, where he was kind enough to take a quick break from taunting the French in order to speak with us. Dario?
Hi there, it's Dario from Baia Pasta. I'm in Paris right now. See the background? I'm in Paris. Some Bateau Mouche over there, the River Seine. Question about starches, high temperature, and pasta. So, drying pasta at high temperature, we ruin the structure, and will actually kind of tangle and ruin the proteins. So it will end up in a pasta that has a very strange consistency and sometimes even crumble. That's the expert opinion. Okay, bye.
He also sent me a link to a study done with much more sophisticated equipment: a rapid viscoanalyzer, a differential scaling calorimeter, an X-ray diffractometer, and a polarized light microscope. I asked my dad to buy me these things, and he just said, "Get a job, you little punk. When I was your age, blah, 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 so on, you know the drill, blah, 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 blah." The bottom line, at higher temperature, the structure of the starch changes, as does the protein, which starts to break down. When you cook your pasta to death, you won't notice this, but when you cook it al dente, you can really tell the difference. One interesting thing I noticed while researching this project: for the exact same size of the Cecco pasta sold in Italy, there are 2 cooking times shown on the package. Al dente, 10 minutes, totally cooked at 12 minutes. For the American package, the total cooking time only shown as 12 minutes. Al dente is not even mentioned. Come on, Italy, help us out here.